Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting my third and final Mr. Haunted video for you guys, and this was 3 true disturbing yard sale horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the back. Okay, here we go.
My boyfriend and I live in a one-storied home in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
We've been living there for about a year now, and while it's a bit pricey, we love the city. For the majority of the time, there wouldn't be any issues in the area, but there would occasionally be a few car thefts, and sirens would be heard at least once a month. Other than that, it was like any other city, until one day, a few months after we moved in. We had moved here in December of 2023, which meant that this happened around February of this year. My boyfriend and I moved from my mom's house, and we had a bunch of stuff we brought along that we no longer needed. I was never good with online selling, seeing as people would always lowball you, and so my boyfriend and I had done a small yard sale just to get rid of junk. Growing up with parents who owned too much stuff, we always had yard sales in the past and would commonly make good money as my mom had owned some valuable items. And a lot of her items were sort of given to us that we didn't need. We had posted the yard sale on an app days prior to hopefully get some extra sales.
Yeah, that's kind of the same way with me because I always have problems selling stuff online or try to sell it through our local radio station. Like to get them to broadcast what I got for sale. And we always get people that contact me, but then they think the price is too much or they change their mind last minute. It's always a hassle. But then again, you can always donate stuff that you don't want to keep if they don't sell. That's what I end up doing sometimes.
Believe me when I say we had about 3 tables out in our yard full of my parents' treasures and such. With the amount of valuables we had, we were pretty confident we'd make some decent cash. For the first few hours, we had absolutely no one. Seeing as this was a weekday, it was sort of expected, seeing as people were at work, but this was the only day both of us were free to do it. We made it through most of the day, with only making about $10 on a vintage radio. As the hours went by, my boyfriend and I decided to call it a day and start putting everything away. However, that's when we see a car slow down next to our house. Right then, I see a man with a white beard and hat get out of the car and begin to walk up to our yard sale. As he's approaching us, he gives us a nod as a way to say hello. I politely tell him to please have a look around and if there's anything I could help him with, to let us know. He lets out a soft grunt and begins searching through the pile of DVDs and board games we had. However, he didn't seem to be interested in any of them and walked over to my mother's old living room table. In a gravelly voice, he asks me how much it was, and I told him $2,000. He lets out a soft chuckle and tries to negotiate a deal of $400. I couldn't help but laugh, thinking he had to be joking. However, it only took a few seconds to realize that he was most certainly not. In the nicest way possible, I told him that was much too low, and that the lowest I'd go for was $1,500. This table was made of a rare wood that can only be found in East Asia. It was also embedded with rose quartz, which made it even more valuable. The look on his face that day will never leave me. It was the type of look a child would give their mother when they can't have their iPad.
At first, they said white beard. I was like, oh, Santa Claus. But then if he's acting like that, no, it ain't him. But he probably knows how much that table is worth, and he's trying to lowball you just so he can sell it for a higher profit. But I got a feeling that he's going to come back and probably try to steal it. But I don't want to jump ahead just yet, so let's just continue on and see what happens next.
He gives one look at me and walks off back to his car, clearly upset by my response. I wasn't gonna let some miserable person ruin my day, so I told him to take care as he drove off. My boyfriend and I finished putting everything away and called it a night. We were both on the verge of falling asleep, so we ordered in and settled down to watch a movie. About halfway through the movie, I told my boyfriend that I'd be in the kitchen getting us some snacks. Now, let me give you a quick layout of our kitchen. We have a doorway that leads from the living room into the kitchen, which has a huge window that allows you to see into the front yard. So you could still see outside even if you were focused on something else. I was fixing up some crackers and cheese when I noticed something out in my driveway. It was the same car from the yard sale earlier. However, the man was nowhere in sight. I go outside searching for him while also wondering how long the car was parked there for. That's when I hear the blood-curdling scream of my boyfriend from inside the house. I run in and he tells me to call the police and that someone was in our bedroom. He said he swore he heard footsteps coming from inside the room. Thankfully, the police station was only a few miles from here, so I knew they'd be fast. I'm on the phone for a good minute while my boyfriend is behind the bedroom door with a kitchen knife. The operator told us to not open that door and to wait until police got there. They arrived sooner than expected and ordered the person in the room to come out. Our door can only be locked from the inside, so police had to break it down to get inside. Clothes were everywhere, the bathroom light was on, and multiple items of value were stolen. They had caught him hiding in our closet before placing him under arrest. Sure enough, it was indeed the same man from the yard sale earlier. He admitted to sneaking in our house through our bedroom window and stealing anything he could if he couldn't have our table. Turns out, he was a local here and actually lectured at CSU. He was arrested, and we were obviously given back what he stole, most of it being jewelry. His car was towed, and after that, we never saw him again, and I hope it remains that way. And for those wondering, we recently sold the table on OfferUp for the asking price.
I cannot believe that guy just came back and tried to steal something else all because he couldn't get the table. And the fact that he's a teacher at some university, oh boy, that ain't gonna look good if he got arrested. But I had a feeling he knew what the value and what type of wood it was. He really wanted it, but he didn't have the money. So if he couldn't have the table, he was going to steal something else if there's a value. Didn't work out, buddy. But thank God they were able to sell that table on that website OfferUp, because I know you get true value for that.
When my brother and I were both 8 or so, our parents held their first ever yard sale since having us. My parents mostly wanted to get rid of stuff us kids wouldn't find interesting, and for whatever reason, we enjoyed the idea of a yard sale. My mom had told us that she didn't want the both of us being bored, so she bought us this little lemonade stand tent for us to sell lemonade. It was a fun and creative way for us to make some cash, and my sister and I gladly made lemonade. My parents were busy selling their own stuff, with people coming left and right. Some people paid for our lemonade, while others had no interest in it. Throughout the day, my brother and I made about $20 from our lemonade and actually had a lot of fun doing it. Fast forward till around 3 or 4, my parents started putting everything away and were happy with the money they made. We had begged our parents to sell for another half hour, which they gave the okay for. We're at our lemonade stand when we see a couple of teenagers, maybe 17 and up, waving to us. We waved back, and before we knew it, they were on their way to our stand. One of them asks us how much it was for a cup of lemonade, to which we said $1. The other guy takes out his wallet and hands us $2 for each of them. We gladly pour their glasses, and we watch as they chug it down in less than a second. After that, they just stared at us, and not knowing what to do, we gave them a smile. That's when one of them speaks up and asks us if we wanted to come with them to find their dog.
No. don't do it. That was a good idea for them to kidnap him with. Man, I hope the parents are looking outside because then they'll be like, hey, what are you guys doing with our kids?
As much as we love dogs, we didn't know these people, and we even told them that our parents were here. However, one of them tells us that he'd pay each of us $100 if we helped him now, and I'll admit, it intrigued us. I look at my brother, and he agreed to it, as did I. Keep in mind, we were still kids, so we had no idea what to think of this. They both grab our hands and begin to walk when my dad comes outside. All we could hear was him yelling, telling them to let us go and that he was calling the police. They do just that, and we then see these people run off down the road into a car. My parents called 911, but nothing ever became of the teens. My dad then told us that as the car was driving past us, he saw well more than 2 people in the car, more like 6. I have no idea what their intentions were that day. Chances are they were probably sent by someone to buy our lemonade just to lure us to do something horrible. Kidnapping, sex trafficking, I don't know. My brother and I are much older now and became a little more wise about strangers.
Oh man, that is sick. The fact that 2 guys would go down there just to buy lemonade and try to entice them to look for their dog just to get them away from the house is crazy. And the fact that dad saw 6 more people in the car, oh no, they came prepared. They looked like they were probably going to kidnap them and then hold them down until they got out of there. But yeah, it'd be sickening if they kidnapped them for sex trafficking or ransom. But thank God that dad ran out in the nick of time when them boys were grabbing onto him. But they're now wiser to the fact that if a stranger asked them to come with them, they ain't doing it.
My wife Tracy and I recently moved out of our old home in Texas. Plus, she didn't like being so close to her family and wanted to put some distance between us and them. We decided to move to upstate Pennsylvania as it was a state we had our eyes on for a while now. I'm an engineer and my wife is an accountant, and Pennsylvania had good job opportunities for the both of us. My wife is on disability due to a spinal injury, so she could only work from home where it was more convenient. Most of the time, I'd be at work morning to evening while my wife would be home working and fixing up the house. While she couldn't do major stuff, she did the best she can. One day, we had both been off from work and decided to go out for some lunch as a way to celebrate our new chapter. We had a nice lunch and decided to head home after. On the way home, my wife points to a sign on the grass directing us to a yard sale in the area. We were both exhausted, but a lot of yard sales have some good stuff, and we put in the address to our GPS. Our GPS took us to the more rural side of town, where the houses and apartments were sort of run down and not well taken care of. We pulled up beside an older house with the garage door open and no cars in the driveway. We thought it was weird, but we didn't think much of it and thought that maybe the people who lived there didn't own a car. This should have been our first red flag, but nonetheless, we get out and head over to the driveway. There was only one table, full of a bunch of vintage household items, women's jewelry, glasses, and not a soul in sight. My wife theorized that the items were likely from the late 60s to early 70s if she had to guess. Just as we were about to leave, we hear a door in the garage open and saw an elderly man walk up to us. His voice sounded very shaken up and low and appeared to have Parkinson's. Even then, he was still nice and asked us to please buy something as his wife had recently divorced him and was very short on money for food. When he said this, my wife and I immediately felt sympathy for him and handed him a $50 bill hoping that it would help. He looked down at the money and thanked us, telling us to have a nice day. On top of this, we even took it a step forward and offered to go and get him food. However, he didn't seem too interested and told us that he had plenty of food. This caught us off guard, and my husband and I sort of look at each other in confusion. Why would he have said he needed money for food if he already has enough food? We thought. We get back in the car and drive off when my wife says that while he seemed kind, there was something off about him. I told her that she was probably overthinking and that he was just elderly. We sort of forgot about the whole thing after a while and focused on unpacking boxes from our move. Fast forward 2 months later, I'm at work when a few of my colleagues were talking about something that caught my attention. When I asked what they were referring to, they said that there was a massive police search on Cherryville Road. When I asked what happened, they pulled up a picture of a man, the same man from the yard sale. Turns out, he had murdered his wife for her wealth to pay off his medical expenses. He hid the car she had in a wooded area to make it look like she left him. Remember when I said we saw women's jewelry at the yard sale? Yeah, that was her jewelry. Police arrested the man and is now spending the rest of his days in prison. All of his wife's belongings had been passed down to her extended family, and the house was later foreclosed. However, he ended up dying in prison several days after, as he couldn't live with the guilt since the loss of his wife. It was sad to an extent, but I won't ever understand why he did what he did. Him and his wife were said to be loving people and raised their son, who is now a current U.S. congressman. I won't be disclosing his name due to privacy reasons, though. This news spread like wildfire across the city. Those who have lived in Pennsylvania might know what I'm talking about. This was definitely one hell of a turnout, and I'm still baffled by the whole thing. I guess that's just how life goes.
That's heartbreaking and sad, but also crazy at the same time. Because why would he come up with that lie to say that his wife divorced him and he needed the money, instead of just saying, oh, my wife recently passed away, sell some things, then people would have been more sympathetic probably. But then I'll be shocked too if I was somewhere and a couple of guys mentioned something about the guy that killed his wife. They arrested him. Man, to think that they were a loving couple and then he decided to get rid of her just so he could pay off medical expenses with her life insurance. That's just wrong. Part of me feels sympathy for him because he was an older guy, but I don't feel sorry for what he did. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Mr. Haunted content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap. And have a nice day, everybody.